iPhone 18 Pro Max vs Google Pixel 11 Pro XL, the ultimate flagship battle. If you thought the smartphone battle between Apple and Google was already intense, then the next generation is about to take things to another level. Today, we are putting two of the most anticipated flagship smartphones head-to-head, the iPhone 18 Pro Max and the Google Pixel 11 Pro XL. And this is not simply a battle of Apple versus Google. It is a battle between two completely different philosophies of smartphone design. On one side, Apple is pushing the iPhone 18 Pro Max with a massive 6.9-inch display, an A20 Pro chipset built on a 2-nanometer process, a huge battery, advanced camera hardware, and the tightly integrated iOS 27 ecosystem. On the other side, Google is bringing the Pixel 11 Pro XL with a 6.8-inch LTPO OLED display, a potentially higher peak brightness, Google's next-generation Tensor G6 processor, a powerful periscope camera, and features such as 8K video recording and an under-display fingerprint scanner. On paper, both phones look extremely powerful. But once we go category by category, the differences become much more interesting. So let's start with the display. Display. The display is the first thing you notice every time you pick up a smartphone. And with these two devices, both Apple and Google are clearly aiming for the premium end of the market. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is expected to feature a 6.9-inch LTPO XDR OLED display with an anti-reflective coating, while the Google Pixel 11 Pro XL comes with a 6.8-inch LTPO OLED panel. And this is where Apple takes a slightly different approach. The iPhone's XDR OLED technology is designed around delivering extremely strong contrast, deep blacks, excellent color reproduction, and a premium viewing experience. But perhaps the more interesting feature here is the anti-reflective display. In everyday life, display brightness is only part of the story. You could have an extremely bright screen, but if reflections from sunlight are constantly fighting against the display, the experience can still be frustrating. Apple's anti-reflective approach is therefore important because it could make the screen easier to see in difficult lighting conditions. Google, however, is not coming quietly. The Pixel 11 Pro XL is listed with a maximum brightness of 3500 nits peak, compared with approximately 3000 nits peak on the iPhone 18 Pro Max. That gives Google the numerical advantage in peak brightness. And if these figures translate into real-world performance, the Pixel could have an advantage when you're using the phone outdoors under intense sunlight. But brightness is not everything. The quality of the panel, color accuracy, power efficiency, touch response, calibration, and how the software interacts with the display all matter. And both phones are using LTPO technology. That is important because LTPO allows the refresh rate to dynamically adjust depending on what you're doing. When you're scrolling, you can get a high refresh rate for smooth movement. When you're looking at a static image or reading text, the refresh rate can drop to conserve battery. So both companies are approaching efficiency from a similar direction. Now let's talk about the screen-to-body ratio. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed at approximately 91.9%, with a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. The Pixel 11 Pro XL comes in at around 88.6%, with a 20:9 aspect ratio. On paper, that gives Apple the advantage in screen utilization. The iPhone is essentially trying to give you more display relative to the physical body of the phone. Google's 20:9 aspect ratio, however, makes the Pixel a little more elongated in its proportions. And then we come to screen size. The iPhone 18 Pro Max has the larger 6.9-inch display, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL has a 6.8-inch display. The difference is only 0.1 inches, so you probably won't notice a dramatic difference simply by holding both phones. But for people who love massive displays for watching movies, editing photos, gaming, browsing, or multitasking, the iPhone has the slight size advantage. Now, surprisingly, the Pixel takes the lead in pixel density. The Pixel 11 Pro XL is listed at 482 pixels per inch, while the iPhone 18 Pro Max sits at approximately 460 pixels per inch. That means Google's display has more pixels packed into every inch. In theory, this can produce extremely sharp text and highly detailed images. But again, the difference is not likely to be something most users will immediately notice with the naked eye. Both phones also support a 120Hz refresh rate. And this is one area where there is essentially no clear winner on paper. At 120Hz, scrolling should feel smooth, animations should look fluid, and gaming can feel significantly more responsive compared with traditional 60Hz displays. For a flagship smartphone in this price category, 120Hz is now expected rather than revolutionary. Resolution is another interesting comparison. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed at 1320 by 2868 pixels, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL offers 1344 by 2992 pixels. Once again, Google has the numerical advantage in resolution. But Apple combines its slightly lower resolution with a very high pixel density and its XDR OLED technology. So rather than simply asking which phone has more pixels, the bigger question is how these displays perform in real-world use. Finally, we have protection. On the front, the iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed with Ceramic Shield 3, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL uses Gorilla Glass Victus 2. The same basic battle continues on the back, with the iPhone using Ceramic Shield and the Pixel using Gorilla Glass Victus 2. Both are designed to provide premium protection, but durability in the real world will ultimately depend on the exact implementation, the frame, the glass construction, and how the phone lands when dropped. Both phones also use an aluminum frame. So in terms of display, we have a fascinating opening round. The iPhone brings the larger screen, higher screen-to-body ratio, XDR OLED technology, and anti-reflective treatment. The Pixel brings higher peak brightness, higher pixel density, and higher listed resolution. Neither phone is clearly dominating every category. And that is exactly what makes this comparison interesting. Battery. Now let's move to something that affects virtually every smartphone user every single day, battery life. Because it doesn't matter how beautiful your display is or how powerful your processor becomes if your phone is constantly asking you to find a charger. And here, Apple appears to have made a significant move. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed with a 5,567 mAh battery on the eSIM model, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL comes with a 5,115 mAh battery. So purely by battery capacity, the iPhone has the larger battery. That is an interesting development because Apple has traditionally relied heavily on the efficiency of its hardware and software rather than simply competing on battery capacity. The iPhone 18 Pro Max combining a large battery with a 2nm processor could potentially create a very strong battery life package. But Google is also bringing a large battery to the Pixel 11 Pro XL. And remember, battery capacity alone doesn't determine battery life. The display, processor, modem, software optimization, background applications, camera usage, gaming, and network conditions all have an impact. Charging is where Google takes the numerical advantage. The Pixel 11 Pro XL supports 45W wired charging, compared with 40W on the iPhone 18 Pro Max. That means Google has the faster charging specification. But the iPhone isn't far behind. The difference is only 5 watts, and actual charging performance depends on the complete charging curve rather than simply the maximum wattage. Wireless charging is where things become completely even. Both phones are listed with 25W wireless charging. So whether you're placing the device on a wireless charging pad at your desk or using a charging stand overnight, neither company has a clear numerical advantage here. And that brings us to performance. Performance. This is arguably where the entire comparison becomes serious. Because these are not just two smartphones. They are two different computing platforms. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is expected to run iOS 27, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL runs Android 17 with Pixel UI. And this is where the difference between Apple and Google becomes obvious. Apple controls the hardware, operating system, processor architecture, and much of the software experience. Google controls Android and its Pixel software experience while designing its own Tensor processor specifically for Pixel devices. The iPhone is therefore built around extremely tight hardware-software integration. The Pixel, meanwhile, is designed around Google's artificial intelligence strategy and its vision of what Android should become. Now let's talk about the processors. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed with a hexa-core processor reaching up to 4.72 GHz, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL is listed with a heptacore processor reaching up to 4.11 GHz. But don't make the mistake of looking at clock speed alone and declaring a winner. A processor's real performance depends on its architecture, core design, cache, memory subsystem, thermal management, operating system optimization, and the applications being used. Apple's major advantage historically has been the performance of its custom silicon and the close relationship between Apple's processors and iOS. Google, meanwhile, is pushing the Tensor platform toward AI, machine learning, computational photography, voice features, and Google's broader software ecosystem. And then we reach the chipset manufacturing process. Both are listed as using a 2-nanometer process. The iPhone 18 Pro Max uses the Apple A20 Pro, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL uses the Google Tensor G6. If these specifications hold, this is a major generation for both companies. Moving toward a 2-nanometer class process can potentially improve performance and efficiency by allowing more transistors and better power management. But the most important question isn't simply which chip is smaller. It is what each company does with that silicon. Apple's A20 Pro is expected to prioritize high-performance computing, graphics, efficiency, and the demanding workloads associated with the iPhone Pro series. Google's Tensor G6 is likely to place enormous emphasis on AI. That distinction could become one of the biggest differences between these phones. Apple could be targeting raw performance and efficiency. Google could be targeting intelligent computing. And then we have graphics. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed with an 8-core Apple GPU, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL is listed with a CXTP GPU configuration ranging from 48 to 1536 GPU units. The numbers look dramatically different, but these figures cannot be compared directly because Apple and Google's GPU architectures count their processing elements differently. What really matters is real-world performance. How fast can the phone render games? How smoothly can it edit 4K or 8K footage? How well does it handle demanding graphics? How much performance does it maintain after extended use? Those are the tests that will ultimately determine the winner. Now let's talk about memory and storage. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed with 12 GB of RAM, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL could be offered with 12 GB or 16 GB of RAM. This gives Google the advantage in maximum RAM. But once again, RAM on iPhone and Android cannot be compared purely by the numbers. iOS manages memory differently from Android. Apple's control over hardware and software allows it to optimize memory usage aggressively. Google, on the other hand, can use larger RAM configurations to support multitasking, AI workloads, applications, and long-term Android functionality. Storage is another area where Apple goes further. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed with 256 GB, 512 GB, 1 TB, and an enormous 2 TB option. The Pixel 11 Pro XL offers 256 GB, 512 GB, and 1 TB. So if you're the kind of person who records huge amounts of video, downloads games, stores movies, keeps thousands of photographs, or uses your smartphone as a portable workstation, the iPhone's 2 TB option is a serious advantage. But neither phone offers a memory card slot. That means whatever storage configuration you purchase is what you're going to live with. And this makes the storage decision extremely important. If you're buying one of these phones, Choosing enough storage at the beginning could save you from constantly deleting files later. Now, after display, battery, and performance, we arrive at the category that many people care about most. The camera. Camera. Smartphone cameras have become one of the biggest reasons people choose one flagship over another. And the iPhone 18 Pro Max and Pixel 11 Pro XL are taking slightly different approaches. Starting with the iPhone. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed with a 48-megapixel wide camera, a 48-megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 48-megapixel telephoto camera. That is an extremely balanced triple camera setup. Apple is essentially giving all three rear cameras high-resolution sensors. And the telephoto camera supports 5x optical zoom, with up to 40x digital zoom. The Pixel 11 Pro XL comes with a 50-megapixel wide camera, a 48-megapixel ultra-wide camera, and a 48-megapixel periscope camera. Again, the numbers are impressive. The Pixel's 50-megapixel main camera gives it the numerical advantage over Apple's 48-megapixel wide camera. The ultra-wide cameras are equal at 48 megapixels. And the telephoto systems are also listed at 48 megapixels. But the interesting difference is Google's use of a periscope telephoto camera. Periscope technology allows manufacturers to create longer optical zoom capabilities without making the phone physically enormous. Both phones are listed with 5x optical zoom. So at native 5x optical magnification, the two devices are very closely matched on paper. But when we move beyond optical zoom, Google pulls ahead significantly. The Pixel 11 Pro XL is listed with up to 100x digital zoom, compared with 40x digital zoom on the iPhone 18 Pro Max. Now, digital zoom numbers can sometimes be misleading. A 100x zoom doesn't automatically mean the resulting photograph will be better than a 40x image. At extreme zoom levels, computational photography becomes extremely important. This is an area where Google has built a strong reputation. Google's image processing can use artificial intelligence and computational photography to reconstruct details, reduce noise, stabilize distant subjects, and make highly zoomed images more usable. Apple takes a more conservative approach. Rather than simply chasing the biggest zoom number, Apple traditionally emphasizes image quality, consistency, color science, video performance, stabilization, and the overall camera experience. So if you're someone who constantly photographs distant subjects, the Pixel's 100x zoom capability could be extremely attractive. But if you're someone who values consistent photography and especially video, the iPhone becomes very difficult to ignore. And this brings us to video recording. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed with rear video recording up to 4K at 24, 25, 60, 100, and 120 frames per second. The Pixel 11 Pro XL is listed with 8K video recording at 30 frames per second. And this is one of the most interesting battles in the entire comparison. Google has the headline advantage. 8K sounds incredible. It gives you a huge amount of resolution and potentially allows for more flexibility when cropping footage. But Apple offers a very broad range of 4K frame rates. And for content creators, filmmakers, YouTubers, and people who care about slow-motion footage, high frame rate 4K can be extremely valuable. At 120 frames per second, you can capture extremely smooth motion and create impressive slow-motion footage. So the question becomes, do you want the headline resolution of 8K? Or do you want Apple's extensive high frame rate 4K capabilities? And then we turn the phone around and look at the front camera. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is listed with an 18-megapixel front camera, capable of 4K video at 24, 25, 30, and 60 frames per second. The Pixel 11 Pro XL has a 13-megapixel front camera, with 4K recording at 30 and 60 frames per second. Here, Apple has the numerical advantage in front camera resolution and offers more recording frame rate options. For people who create YouTube videos, TikTok videos, Instagram content, live streams, or simply make a lot of video calls, the front camera can be extremely important. And this is where the iPhone could appeal strongly to creators who want flexibility. But megapixels aren't everything. Image processing, stabilization, skin tones, HDR, autofocus, exposure, microphone quality, and computational photography can all affect the final result. So once again, the specifications only tell part of the story. Connectivity and security. Now let's finish with connectivity and security. And this is where Apple and Google once again take very different approaches. The iPhone 18 Pro Max comes with Face ID support. Apple has spent years developing its facial recognition system, and Face ID has become one of the defining biometric features of the iPhone. Instead of placing a fingerprint scanner under the screen, Apple relies on facial authentication. For many users, the biggest advantage is convenience. You simply look at the phone, and it can authenticate you. The Pixel 11 Pro XL takes a different approach. Google is listed with an under-display fingerprint scanner. That gives users a physical biometric authentication method built directly beneath the display. And this can be particularly convenient in situations where facial recognition isn't ideal. You can simply place your finger on the designated area and unlock the phone. So this is not necessarily a situation where one is universally better. It comes down to personal preference. Some people love Face ID. Others prefer fingerprints. Now, connectivity. Both smartphones support Wi-Fi 7. That means both are prepared for the latest generation of Wi-Fi networking, assuming you have compatible networking equipment. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is also listed with Bluetooth 7, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL is listed with Bluetooth 6.0. So Apple has the higher Bluetooth specification on paper. The iPhone also includes 5G via satellite support and emergency SOS support, adding another layer of connectivity and safety-oriented functionality. Satellite-based communication is particularly interesting because it expands what a smartphone can potentially do when traditional cellular networks aren't available. The Pixel 11 Pro XL, meanwhile, brings USB Type-C 3.2 support. And USB performance matters more than many people realize. If you transfer large video files from your phone to a computer, especially 4K or 8K footage, faster wired connectivity can make a significant difference. For creators who regularly move large files, USB performance can become just as important as camera specifications. So once again, these two phones are approaching the flagship experience from different directions. The verdict. So, after going through everything, which phone actually wins? The answer isn't as simple as looking at one specification. The iPhone 18 Pro Max appears to be the more balanced flagship for people who want Apple's complete ecosystem. You get a large 6.9-inch LTPO XDR OLED display, a large battery, the A20 Pro processor, up to 2 TB of storage, a 3-camera 48-megapixel system, extensive 4K video capabilities, Face ID, Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 7, and Apple's tightly integrated software experience. The iPhone's biggest strength may actually be consistency. Apple isn't necessarily trying to win every single specification category. Instead, it is trying to create a device where everything works together. The display works with iOS. The A20 Pro works with iOS. The cameras work with Apple's computational photography. The battery works with Apple's efficiency optimizations. The ecosystem connects the iPhone with other Apple devices. And that integration is one of the reasons the iPhone remains so difficult to compete against. But then there's the Google Pixel 11 Pro XL. And Google is bringing some very serious weapons of its own. The Pixel offers a potentially brighter 3500 nit display, higher pixel density, higher listed resolution, up to 16 GB of RAM, a 50-megapixel main camera, a 48-megapixel periscope camera, 100x digital zoom, 8K video recording, a 45W charging system. an under-display fingerprint scanner, and Google's AI-focused Tensor G6 platform. And that tells you exactly what Google's strategy is. Google isn't simply trying to build another Android phone. It is trying to build an intelligent smartphone. A phone where artificial intelligence becomes part of the camera, the assistant, the operating system, communication, photography, productivity, and everyday interaction. So if you care about extreme zoom, AI features, higher RAM configurations, 8K video, fingerprint authentication, and Google's Android ecosystem, the Pixel 11 Pro XL could be extremely compelling. But if you care about Apple's ecosystem, high-end video recording, long-term software integration, enormous storage options, performance, Face ID, and the overall premium iPhone experience, the iPhone 18 Pro Max could be the better choice. And there is something important to remember. A flagship smartphone is no longer judged by one specification. It is judged by the entire experience. The fastest processor means very little if the software isn't optimized. A 100x zoom means very little if the final image is unusable. A 3500 nit display means very little if battery consumption becomes excessive. A huge battery means very little if charging is slow. And 2 terabytes of storage means very little if you never need that much space. This is why the battle between Apple and Google is so fascinating. Apple is betting on integration, performance, efficiency, ecosystem, and consistency. Google is betting on AI, computational photography, flexibility, Android, and intelligent software. The iPhone 18 Pro Max looks like the flagship designed to give you a highly controlled and polished premium experience. The Pixel 11 Pro XL looks like the flagship designed to push the boundaries of what a smartphone can do through Google's software and artificial intelligence. So if I had to summarize the battle in one sentence, the iPhone 18 Pro Max is about power working seamlessly with an ecosystem, while the Pixel 11 Pro XL is about intelligence working seamlessly with Android. And that is what makes this generation so exciting. Because regardless of which side you choose, you are looking at 2 smartphones that represent the highest level of technology from 2 of the biggest names in the industry. The real winner, however, will ultimately be decided not by the specification sheet, but by how these phones perform in the hands of everyday users. And when the iPhone 18 Pro Max and Pixel 11 Pro XL finally go through real-world testing, we will know whether Apple's efficiency and optimization can overcome Google's aggressive hardware and AI strategy. Until then, the specification battle is already incredibly close. The iPhone has its advantages. The Pixel has its advantages. And for the first time, choosing between these 2 flagships may come down less to which company has the bigger number, and more to which smartphone philosophy fits you best.